because I want the students to know who I am,
Wow.
or the things that I believe. They know that I love samba, and I have a flag that says everything samba on the wall. Anastasia, which was an enslaved woman, because she had her mouth covered, but with metal. History matters, but the way the history is told matters the most.
This is my story.
My father. My father told me stories slow. Jazz in the car, skylines aglow, rushing through metal and time, Lion King lights, rhythm and rhyme. Memories a map, stories aflame, truth in our voice, not just our name. Silence breaks when we speak it aloud. Stories are sacred, soft and proud. Roots reclaim, voices rise, spirit and land, sea and skies, medicine made in every line.
In today's episode, we dig up the bones of a story that colonialism tried to kill and asks what it means to be kept alive. So settle in, the story begins.
Okay. First, I want to say thank you because I felt special when I got the invitation. Thank you. Sometimes we think that our stories are not that important, that not everyone wants to listen to it. And when I felt special because when I saw the invitation regarding the need and the need of wanting to hear my stories, I felt more than special. So thank you again for the invitation. My name is Maria Eduarda. I'm known as Duda. It's my nickname. I'm a Brazilian social studies teacher. I'm a historian. I'm an educator. I like to introduce myself telling that I'm an educator because that's what matters for me the most. And I think the subject that I teach explains my whole existence. I'm a daughter of a mom that was a teacher. She studied to be a physics teacher, but she didn't like education much.
Oh, that's interesting.
She felt threatened by teenagers.
Okay, that's interesting to hear.
But it's interesting because my mom raised me valuing education, even though her mother never had access to it.
Oh, okay.
My grandmother, she was my second mom. She died when she was 89, and she never learned how to read.
Oh.
And I just remember helping her to sign her name.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's important to mention her story, her name,
Yep.
because she was a mother of 4 children that went to school, that graduated in universities, that achieved the goals that she couldn't have access to.
Wow.
And I think that's the most important thing. But I'm also the daughter of 2 amazing men.
That's amazing.
My father, he also didn't have much access to education, but he values education till nowadays. And he only did middle school, no, not even middle school. He only did elementary school because he had to work so soon in a factory.
Like he left school and started working before
Yes.
finishing his
Yes.
education, yeah.
And even though he didn't have access to further education, he always encouraged me to study.
Just, yeah.
He put some pressure on me.
I mean, education is the key.
Yeah, education is the key. And my grandfather, the most amazing man on earth, because he also raised me telling stories and valuing every choice that I made regarding education. So when I introduce myself, I like to mention the ones that allowed me to be here,
Yeah.
because if it wasn't by them,
then
I wouldn't.
You won't be here. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, sure, that makes sense.
And I grew up being a person that had always access to information. I'm a privileged person. I'm a black girl, black woman. I was raised amongst white people. Even though I was raised amongst white people, I've always been in a privileged position.
Oh, wow.
So I'm proud of that. But at the same time, I grew up not with anger. I grew up with a feeling of resistance, and somehow I felt inside me that I had something that would, I don't know, a feeling that I had to fight for something else. And even though I was in a privileged position, I didn't understand that I was a black girl
Yeah.
because I was a teenager amongst white kids. I felt I was white too because back then I had a straightened hair, you know, so I was behaving like them,
Yeah.
listening to the same kind of songs, going to the same places.
Yeah.
But in my inner self, I was feeling something else.
Something different. Like
I was feeling the need of shouting or fighting for something, or maybe, I don't know, just screaming.
and you did not know.
But I didn't know what was that feeling. After a while, when I got in finally into high school, I understood that I was a black girl. That's why I introduced myself as a black social studies teacher,
Yeah,
because it was in a class, in a history class in high school, with a teacher that had the same skin color as me. He was talking about the civil rights movement. He was talking about not only the American one, but how Brazilians, the black movements in Brazil, they fought.
Okay.
And while showing pictures of other people that looked like me, also listening to stories from his family side and also his stories about experiences, I was like, maybe somehow I'm like him, but I don't know how to express this.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to randomly, when you're a teenager, to change identity. You know, when you're a teenager,
Yeah.
you gotta keep, you
Your-
gotta stick to your identity. Especially in the middle of the school year. Who changes identity in the middle of the school year? So I remember, okay, if I look behind, like if I look back to my family, I see skin color, I see color, I see melanin. My mom, she's dark. My grandfather, dark as well. So why am I denying this identity? Because my father is white.
Oh.
And his whole family is white as well, which is not a problem.
Yes.
But I was in that zone that I couldn't identify myself with my white family members. I was not that white because, you know,
Yeah.
I didn't have the same nose. We didn't have the same nose. We didn't have the same, I don't know, even behavior. But with my mom's side family, I was not too dark.
Oh,
So-
you're like a little bit lighter than.
I'm a little bit
Uh-huh.
lighter. So I was like, where do I fit? And finally, in my high school, I understood that there isn't this black or white. Like, there is something in between as well. And when
Yeah.
you are composed by many ethnical groups,
Then
you have to
You can.
try to fit in one of them.
Yeah.
So I chose to be a black girl that was privileged, but it was still a black girl.
Yeah.
So I found a way to claim my identity over time. And with years coming by, coming to the university, reading books.
So I do have a question. This is a random question. You say you chose to be a black girl. So before you noticed, you realized you're actually black. You didn't know you were anything. Did you know you think you were white, or you didn't have a preference on any, because you come from like a mixed family?
There is this expression that would, if I'm try to translate to English, would be the tanned. You know, sometimes when people go under the sun, they get tanned.
Oh yeah.
And in
sure.
Portuguese, they call morena, so it's a person that got tanned easily.
Oh.
Sometimes people would think, oh, you're like this because you're tanned.
Oh, because you went to the beach and got
Because
some
you went to the beach.
sun. Yeah.
Since I'm not that dark,
Yeah.
and but when it's summertime, I can be darker as well. I need some sun, of course.
Melanin, yeah.
But when I heard that, oh, you're tanned, I felt somehow that could be my identity. So my skin color does not represent who I am.
yeah.
Maybe represents something that I have been through.
Yeah.
So the sun process impacts my skin color, and my skin color does not reflect who I am regarding culture, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not denying my family's culture.
Yeah.
I've been always exposed to samba, which is something that it's the majority of my family's culture. I've been exposed to barbecues, family dinners, and meals. But when you're a teenager, these things, they can get lost because you're exposed to new things.
New things, yeah. It's like always a new generation coming with teenagers, yeah. Yeah.
So I remember that it was easy to deny everything that I was. It was the moment that I heard and I was exposed to rock and roll. Not saying that rock and roll, it's bad, but it's
Yeah.
white.
It's predominantly. Yeah.
Predominantly white.
Yeah.
So I was exposed to extremely white artists, qualified, lovely, one of the best. But I was slowly,
It was laid back into one side than the other.
yeah. My mom always put some pressure on me to be the best in a few areas. Like, I was going to a family celebration with my dad's family. You need to be the most looking good. Your hair has to be straight, your hair has to be like this, your nails have to be done because you have to look great. Oh, you're going with these people, they're white, so you gotta dress up nicely. Let's find a way that you're adequate to that setting.
So your mom was like a protection?
Yes.
Tried to protect you, yeah?
I nowadays I understand a lot what she did. She was building self-esteem
Yep.
in a way that she always empowered myself.
Yeah.
If today I'm a woman that I feel that I'm the most beautiful woman in the world,
Yeah.
was because my mom raised me this way.
That's amazing.
At the same time, when I was a teenager, it was like, why is she putting so much pressure? Like, I don't want to get dressed this way. I just wanted to be a teenage girl wearing whatever I wanted to wear, but I couldn't. So I'm not saying that my mom did things to me. I'm saying that society puts a pressure on us.
Yeah.
That luckily our parents, sometimes they are there for us to help us see through.
Yeah.
300 years of slavery.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Let's start with that. 300 years of slavery, understanding that in 300 years, being black was a crime, was offenseful, was bad, no one wanted to be. Even people with my color that are lighter skin, they were also seen as nothing because it was a mixture. It was even a crime. Like, if being black was awful, being a mixed race was even worse because someone from the white side, the white community, crossed the line, and created something new.
Yeah.
So
So I think it runs much deeper, yeah.
it starts with that.
Yeah.
After a while, after the abolishment, after slavery being done,
Yeah.
of course, it took some years to have the blackness pride existing. I'm not saying that black people in Brazil, they always hated to be black. They had to fight to exist.
Yeah, sure.
But I mention this because my grandfather, he was born when slavery was recent, like when freedom was recent.
Yeah.
He was born in 1933, and the abolishment was in 1888.
Yeah.
So soon, so
yeah,
soon.
It was pretty much.
So imagine
closer.
being a boy in the 1930s when freedom is something new.
Yeah.
No one wanted to be black,
Yeah, nobody. Yeah.
but they were black. So they managed to have a family, somehow have access to education. My grandfather, he was an educated man. He managed to have a job. He managed to have a family, raise kids. Those kids had access to education. And those kids, my mom and my uncles, they were a rich family. You know, the wealthy family, everyone attended private school, but they were black. They had access to education, but they were black.
Yeah.
And they grew up, they had children, they got married, but they were still black. My mom, she took some time to understand that she faced racism over her life
Yeah.
because she thought it was normal.
Yeah.
It's embedded in the society,
The
so
society,
it's
so, yeah.
it's not attacking me, you know?
See the same thing, yeah.
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 It took her long to understand all those things that happened to her. For example, she always loved to have her nails in red. She was the only one that had red in her nails. But then other girls in her office also were having red in her nails. My mom was the only one that was called out. But then she said, "Oh, but I was the one that started." And I said, "But whatever.
Yeah.
If everyone does the same,
Yeah.
why can't everyone be called out?"
Yeah.
The thing is, my mom and her siblings, they managed to be raised in a society that didn't have much freedom. Like while my grandfather, he was raised when freedom was new, my mom and her siblings, they were raised when there was dictatorship in Brazil. Once again, being black was a crime because being black in the 60s was to fight for your rights. The 60s and the 70s, you see people finally raising their voices, feeling empowered and speaking to the world. We want to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
Even though my mom went to school, got many degrees, she was still black.
Yeah.
She's still the person that, and I remember that when I was a teenager with her, we went to a store to buy a TV. You know, we're cariocas, we live in Rio, so we wear flip-flops. We wear shorts, jeans, and whatever shirt we have. No one wanted to see us because we were black. How about the diplomas? How about the access to education? How about the wealthy family that raised 4 children? How about, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you in your pocket you have 1,000 in cash.
Yeah. as long
Doesn't
as
matter
you're
if your credit card has the highest limit. The first thing they see,
Yeah.
it's what they believe it's the true thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a stereotype, and yeah. Wow. Okay. That's that's why you're special. That's why we want you.
I talk a lot, I'm sorry.
No. It's okay. I mean.
I think the first story that I remember, of course it wasn't her, but I believe it's her, my grandmother. Of course, and my mom and my dad, they were
grandmas
telling me
are the
stories
best,
because they were there with me 24/7. I also had my brother with me when I was little, so I can assure that he said some good stories to me.
Yeah.
But my grandmother, she was the one that would tell the craziest, the random,
Yeah.
the fun stories, sometimes sad stories.
Grandparents are the best. Yeah.
I even found a picture of her recently. I can show you later. It's me. I think I was 5 or 4.
Yeah.
I'm with my back to the picture, and I see my grandmother holding me on the arm, and my grandfather on the back, like looking.
Wow.
Probably my grandma coming saying like something like, "You gotta do this, you know," because sometimes she would just grab me by the arms and say, "Did you eat your food?" My grandmother, she is a spiritist.
Yes, spiritualist. Yeah.
And something about her, as I said before, she didn't have access to education, so she never read. She only knew how to write her name because you had to say the letters, the names, and how they were done. So M, you start up and you go down. The I goes up and there's a little ball on top. And she also had diabetes. And there was a moment that she got sick. She lost her toe, her toe from her left foot. And after some years, she was completely healed. And I went with her to the spiritual center that she would go. And she always needed assistance to walk because she would, she didn't have balance anymore. So I remember coming with her, getting her out of the car. She needed some assistance to go across the street. And I still remember this day. She crossed the gate. When she crossed the gate, she changed the way she was like standing.
Like composed herself.
Yes, and then she left my arm and said, "I can go by myself."
Wow. Okay.
She went walking by herself, and I was like, okay, whatever. She's my grandmother, I have to respect her. I remember that I was doing other things, blah, blah, blah. When I came to see her again, she was giving a lecture and reading a book. That was my grandma.
Wow.
Yeah. And when you ask about the stories, when you listen to her talking, for example, the picture that I said about her grabbing by the arm, sometimes she would say, "Stay here." I'm like, "For what reason?" "There's someone behind you. Let's just wait those people to go." And I would be like, okay.
Yeah.
I always believed in her, never argued a
She
bit.
had very strong spiritual
Yes.
instincts and belief. Yeah.
And that's why everything that she said, like, don't go now, wait 5 minutes, go tomorrow,
Yeah.
I always heard.
Powerful woman. Yeah.
And those stories, they were stories that sometimes I had a dream with you, so don't do that. Or telling a story about someone that she thought that I knew, but maybe she knew that I knew. I would just accept her stories. And it's sometimes bizarre because she had a knowledge that she didn't have to read to get the knowledge. And that's what I believe the most. The education can be something that can go through generations, even though it does not follow the formal ways. She was an educated woman, not academically sane. But even though she had some academic, knowledge, my grandfather, of course, he was the biggest example because, as I said, I've always heard stories. And the thing is, in Portuguese, when we talk about story, sometimes we misunderstand with history. Because in informal Portuguese, people say história, história. Like my personal history and my personal story. Sometimes they're mixed with this one word, história.
Oh, that's something new I'm learning today. Yeah.
There is a way to differ the two words.
Yeah, sure.
But in an informal way, people just call history. And I was raised listening to stories and histories of my family. And then I remember that one day, my grandfather told me something that connected with historical fact in Brazil. And I was a teenager, and I was listening how a fact impacted my family. And in that moment, I realized that I wanted to be a history teacher. And my mom, she's the reason why I insisted on it, because I heard from many people saying that I was going to be poor, because teachers are poor in Brazil. History teachers don't have jobs.
Oh, okay.
Because there are a lot of unemployed historians in Brazil.
Oh, really?
All these are facts. All these are true information.
Oh, okay.
But there's always the but.
Yeah.
I'm not a random history teacher. I have the self-esteem to say that I'm a different teacher. I'm a bilingual international teacher. I'm a black teacher that has been trying to find my path.
Yeah, and you're very smart as well.
I've been trying to stay smart. I've been trying to study even more. And I know that, especially in the place that I work, I'm the only one like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm the only black teacher in there. So I feel special.
Yeah.
Because of these two people that, one, connected the random fact with a real fact. I understood that histories can explain stories and stories can explain histories.
History. Yeah.
And all these things are connected. So when I knew my personal story and when I knew my family's history, I could know who I was.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you are the only black history teacher where you work. So do you think history really matters on who teaches the history?
Yes.
Like on what kind of information will be given out to students if some certain people are the only people who are employed to do some certain type of job. And since you are there, like, are you like shaping it differently in a way that it was not being shaped when, let me say, it's predominantly white? So if you come from a white family, you will tell all the white history. That's one side of the story, right? But if you come from a black family, especially someone like you who is very special, you have experienced both sides, like the white and the black. So do you think if it's only his white teachers who are there, they will only say one side of the story and then your black side of the story will be left out?
I love the question. The thing is, I'm the only black female teacher.
Yeah.
There are other educators that somehow are black.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you're black, you cannot only be black. You have to say that you're black. Because being black, sadly, doesn't mean anything in Brazil. Because there are a lot of black people that are pretty racist, that go against the black community.
Yeah.
So you gotta claim the identity and stand up for it. and I do this. I do that in silence, but I also do that sometimes in public. For example, when I have braids on, I embrace my identity, I embrace my culture, and I don't have to say anything. I just have to go to work. And my students, they see me, even though the majority of them are white, they see some proud in me, and they are happy for it. They compliment me. They say that I look great. They say that matches my personality. They say that I have style.
It's amazing, yeah.
So it's beautiful to see this from them.
Yeah.
And when I teach a content, for example, not every time I get to choose my favorite content, which are like Brazilian history or the African history overall, saying sometimes I have to teach about ancient Greece. Sometimes I have to teach about the United States. But when I do that, what I try to do is I choose authors that are non-white. I choose pictures that represent a diversity. Somehow, even if I don't have the proper sources, I try to show other ways. If it's non-white, maybe, I don't know, non-American. If it's non-American, maybe non-British. I try to go for a different source that can provide somehow a tiny bit of diversity that sometimes the content does not allow me. If not doing that, my classroom itself speaks. I have flags. I have, like, of course, the Brazilian flag, but I have an alternative flag that says indigenous, black, and non-white in the middle of the Brazilian flag. So I have some critics as well on my walls. I have black authors hanged on the walls. I have black politicians hanged on the walls. So even if I'm not teaching the content, my classroom speaks for itself. Because I want the students to know who I am. What are the things that I believe. They know that I love samba, and I have a flag that says everything samba on the wall. Because kids need to know that samba somehow expresses my identity and my culture. All the pictures that I have Malcolm X on my wall. I have Martin Luther King. I have Anastasia, which was an enslaved woman. That recently they have changed her painting because she had her hands
like mouth covered?
Yeah, mouth covered, but with metal. And they did, like an artist did in, I think, 2019. He changed the design, and now she has a smile.
Wow.
So, and I have that on my wall. So I want my students to see that history matters, but the way that history is told matters the most.
Yeah, sure.
I have a picture of Malcolm X smiling, not with a gun. You know, it's the way I teach the history. It's the way I want them to see how the black community is.
This is my story.
My father told me stories slow. Jazz in the car, skylines aglow, rushing through metal in town, Lion King lights, rhythm and rhyme. Memories a map, stories aflame, truth in our voice, not just our name. Silence breaks when we speak it aloud. Stories are sacred, soft and proud. Roots reclaim, voices rise, spirit and land, sea and skies. Medicine made in every line. Story heals one breath at a time. Hold it with care, speak it with love. Let it guide us forward. Hold it with care and speak it with love. Let it guide us forward.
This is my story. My story. This is my story. This is my story.
My father told me stories slow. Jazz in the car, skylines aglow, rushing through metal in town, Lion King lights, rhythm and rhyme. Memories a map, stories aflame, truth in our voice, not just our name. Silence breaks when we speak it aloud. Stories are sacred, soft, and proud. Roots reclaim, voices rise.